Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, Diana and the Book Hunt. It is Christmas week, everyone, so I bet that everyone is really excited about what is to come at the end of this week. I'm also excited as well because I love the holidays, I love Christmas, I love family time and all of the little traditions that we have within our family that we celebrate. So I can't wait for the end of the week. I do have to say that I've a bit of a mixed week this week because I've been a bit sick. My day-to-day basis routine has been a bit off because I was sick and I couldn't also record because my voice was just not strong enough. I tend to lose my voice very easily, so I knew that I couldn't film this video until I felt a bit better. I probably don't look all too well. I'm sorry about that. But anyway, I hope that we can get through this video because it's the one that I'm most excited about to do since I started my booktube channel. I'm going to be sharing with you my favorite reads of 2021, the books that really left very strong impacts on me, that really evoke different types of emotions in me, books that I want to share with everyone who is willing to listen because they definitely deserve all the hype that they can get, and I just can't wait to discuss them with you. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into the books. I do have to say that I'm not going to do a would you rather question as a tradition on my channel, simply because I don't want this video to get too long. We'll revisit the tradition as soon as possible, I promise, but let's just go ahead and dive into the books because I'm so excited to share them with you. So I'm going to be discussing 10 books today, and what I decided to do with this video is to try not to do a ranking from worst to best or best to worst, because I really cannot pick any of those books as a most favorite or least favorite. They all hold a very special place within my heart. They have really impacted me very greatly in their own special ways. So what I decided to do is to do a chronological following order, where I start with the first book that I read, which was like a spectacular 5-star read for me, and lead up to the last book that I read, which had also a very big impact on me, and it was a recent read at the beginning of December, I believe. So let's just start with the books. The first one I want to discuss I read in March, and that was Tracy Deonn's Legendborn. It's a young adult fantasy book which revolves around the Arthurian legend. It has such an amazing young adult female badass character. I absolutely adored the fact that this was a focal point within the book, that we were following such a strong female lead. The book follows Bree, who is, I believe, 16 when the book starts. We find out that she has recently lost her mother, and she goes to this high school where at the beginning of the book she witnesses this demon attack, and there is this mage who tries to wipe out her memory, but it doesn't work. And I think that that's where she kind of gets the hint that she may have some powers of her own. Within the plot development, she finds out that there is the secret society within her school, and she joins that society in order to try to find out what happened to her mother. There is just so much development within the book. It's so fast-paced, action-filled. There is a romance within the book. There are historical aspects within the book. There's just so much to unpack within it. And I have to say that I was so engaged and so entertained the whole time, on the edge of my seat. I absolutely loved the story. I loved the characters, the character development of both the female lead Bree and also the side characters Nick and Sal. It was just so amazing, and I can't rave enough about this book. I definitely recommend it, and there's going to be a sequel which will come out in 2022. I'm definitely going to be picking that one up. It's my highly anticipated reads for 2021. And I just can't say enough about this book that will do it justice. Please pick it up because it definitely deserves all the attention that it can get. The second book on my list, I'm not going to spend too much time on, to be very honest, because it's a third book within a series. It's Jennifer L. Armentrout's Crown of Gilded Bones. It's the third book within the Blood and Ash series. and I can just say that I absolutely loved it. The Blood and Ash series starts with From Blood and Ash. I gave that book 4 stars. It wasn't my absolute favorite because it was a bit slow in the beginning with the development of the plot and the characters. But once the action started to pick up in book 2, I really got really invested in the story of the heroine. We again have a very badass heroine in the face of Poppy, and the male characters are also absolutely splendid. I loved the development of the plot. I love that it was action filled as well. And the world building is just so beautiful. I absolutely love it. And I was kind of surprised that it wasn't the end of the series. I didn't know that there was going to be a fourth book, and I believe that it's going to continue with multiple books after that. But I'm not too bothered by it, to be very honest. I'm very highly anticipating the fourth book in 2022. So yeah, it was a 5-star read for me, and I recommend that you pick up the full series. Don't just start with the second or the third book because they're not standalones, they're not companion novels. They really need to be read in order. So if you want to pick this one up, pick it up starting from Blood and Ash. The next book on my list is probably no surprise to anyone who is within the book community. It's Emily Henry's People We Meet on Vacation. This book was an absolute delight for me. I have to say it involves one of my favorite tropes, which is friends to lovers. It follows our main character, Poppy, who has had this friendship with Alex from their college years on. They've had this tradition where they travel together, and we follow 2 timelines within this book where we see their past travels and we really see the development of their friendship. And we also see a present setting where they have lost touch. Something has happened in the past that has kind of impacted their friendship. And what we see is that Poppy is this travel blogger or travel writer for a site or a magazine, and she needs to do some trips that she needs to record, but she has lost her groove, her motivation. So she decides to reach out to Alex and propose that they do another trip together so she could try to reconcile their differences and try to rekindle their friendship, but also try to get her motivation back for her job. And I absolutely love this story. I mean, the dual timelines really worked for me in this specific case. The friends to lovers trope, again, is one of my favorites. It really touches my heart whenever people who already know and love each other can discover a different type of love for each other. This is really one of my favorite things to see within romance stories. And I absolutely loved Alex. I mean, his character really worked for me. This book left me feeling really angsty because I was rooting for them to reconcile and to get back to a place where they can share all the love that they can together. And also it left me feeling with a real feel good mood in the end because of the ending and the climax within the story. I absolutely recommend this book. It was such an amazing fun read for me, and I can't wait for the new release by Emily Henry in 2022. She's fastly becoming one of my favorite authors. I love Beach Read, and this book also really did it for me. So I definitely think that she's going to have some hits in the future as well. The fourth book on my list is by an author that I didn't think that I would like very much. Not the author himself, but his works. I didn't think that his books fit up my alley, but on a whim I decided to pick up one of his books because it was in my audio library, and I was so happy that I did. This is A Man Called Ove by Frederik Backman. And honestly, I don't think that I can do this book any justice if I try to do a synopsis for it. I can only say that it totally melted my heart. This grump of a man who thinks he goes through the motions in life and feels so dejected within the life that he lives, but is actually such an amazing, warm character with a heart of gold, and he has just such amazing qualities to him, and the story felt so real to me, so amazing, with such a sense of humor and such a delightful way of interaction between the characters. I absolutely love this book. I know that it's quite a popular book and that all the book community has probably read it. I was quite late to the hype within this book, but I'm so happy that I picked it up. And if you haven't, please check it out. If you have any kind of how do you call it, hesitations like I did, just try to bite through them. It definitely deserves to be read. I absolutely love it, and I do think that anyone who picks it up will not be disappointed as well. The next two books I'm going to talk about are by the same author, and I actually read them back to back. The author is Taylor Jenkins Reid, and the first book that I read is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I have to say that when I think about this book, I just wonder at how marvelous it is that I read so many wonderful books this year, which have such amazing, powerful female leads. Evelyn Hugo is just such a marvelous, wonderful, complex and flawed female character, and I was so fascinated by her. She is a fictional Hollywood icon, but it felt like she was a real person to me. Like I wanted to go to Google and just try to find out what has happened with her story and whether any of the things that were written were true. The plot revolves around her life story. She's a Hollywood icon who is in her 80s at the beginning of the book, and she has never told her full life story. She's been married 7 times, so the public has always wanted to know about those 7 marriages and who her true love was within the love stories that she had. And I have to say that I was so immersed within the story. I was so fascinated by the plot twist as well, which was nearing the end of the book. And this book left me so entertained and wanting more out of the same feelings that I got from this book. So I decided to pick up the second book by this author, which is Daisy Jones and the Six. And that book actually made even more of an impact on me than Evelyn Hugo's book. I have to say, I talked about this book in one of my previous videos, and I mentioned that I read the audiobook for it, which made an absolute difference for me because it was acted out in full cast. We follow the story of a 60s and 70s rock band, and the book is written in an interview style where we get the view of each and every one of the bandmates and some of the side characters within the story. So you really get immersed into the story like you're a part of it, like it's a Hollywood movie and you're like a bystander within that set. So it was just so marvelous. It was probably the best audiobook that I picked up this year, and I definitely recommend it. It's like you feel the concert feeling, the music, the sex, the drugs, the relationships, the fights, everything. You feel like it's multiplied or amplified within the book. So I absolutely love that book. Both of those books were in their own respects very special to me, but Daisy Jones and the Six, I have to say that that one really touched me in a very special way, also because of the female leads within the book. There were 2 of them which absolutely made all the difference for me. There's not enough that I can say about those 2 books as well, which will do them justice. I definitely recommend that you pick them up because those were really, really some special stories. The next book I'm going to talk about is by J Maas. I have to say I was quite late in discovering the marvelous writing that J Maas does, and I'm happy that I finally decided to pick up one of her books this year. I was always very intimidated by the fact that she has long series and chunky books, but this year I decided to just try to bite the bullet and pick up one of her books, and I did so with A Court of Thorns and Roses. Out of the series, my favorite was A Court of Mist and Fury, which is the second book. So that is the one which is on my list for my most favorite books of 2021. I'm not going to do a synopsis because I don't want to ruin the story, the plot for anyone who hasn't read the story. I can only say that it has a marvelous female protagonist again, so a powerful female lead, and the plot is amazing. The romance is amazing. It just is top notch. I can definitely recommend anyone who loves an amazing um, alpha who is in service of his female. Resand is just, he goes above and beyond for Farah. And then we have also the world, the magical world which it's set in. It's just absolutely amazing. I definitely recommend it. The second one again is my favorite out of the four. And yeah, I'll definitely pick up other series by this author because I think they'll be worth it as well. Book number 8 on my list is probably the most hyped up book of this year within the romance genre for the book community. It's The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. I have to say that this book totally surprised me because usually hyped up books don't really work out well for me. I tend to dislike books that are hyped up because they set such a high expectation that I should like them, and if something just doesn't work for me, then I get really disappointed. So this book surprised me really because it totally lived up to the hype. I also didn't know that I actually liked the fake dating trope, but apparently I do because I loved it within this setting. In this book, we follow Olive, who is a PhD student, biology, and she has dated this guy Jeremy, but unsuccessfully. She didn't have any feelings towards him, so she broke up with him. But it turned out that her best friend Anne actually does have feelings for him and she wants to date him, but because of girl code she doesn't want to approach him. So what Olive decides to do is she wants to kind of clear the path for Anne to try and date Jeremy. So she thinks of a plan to tell Anne that she's actually dating someone, but that is not the case. And on a night, she just tells Anne that she's going on a date, but she actually goes to the lab to just work on a project. And when she goes to the lab, she encounters Anne there. So just to prove a point that she's on a date, she grabs the first guy next to her and kisses him. The guy next to her, whom she kisses, he is this not so well liked professor within the university. He's a bit of a grump and he's very strict and hard on his students, so he's not well liked. And they're in a bit of an awkward situation after they kiss, and they strike up a conversation where they make a deal to fake date because it will benefit them both in different respects. So this is where their story starts, and it was such an amazing, heartwarming, lovable story. I started reading it really late one evening, and that was totally my fault. I binged it throughout the whole night. I didn't sleep at all, and the next day I had to work, but I couldn't even care about the fact that I hadn't slept because I was so high on the love story within the book. That basically proves that it's such a good story that I couldn't even regret losing any sleep over it. So I definitely recommend it. Go ahead and pick it up. It definitely lives up to all the hype that it had this year. The next book on my list is one which is so amazingly beautifully written and also beautifully illustrated. It's a children's book and it was recommended on Murphy's channel, which I'll link down below. She has recommended it on so many occasions that I really decided that I had to pick it up. So I'm so happy that I did so as well. The name of the book is The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse, and the author is Charlie Mackesy. I'm not going to do a synopsis because it's quite a short book, and I just decided to read out my Goodreads review for you because it will give you an idea of what I felt after I read that book. It's quite short, so just bear with me a second. What I wrote is, this is such a sweet, pure and endearing and very encouraging story of friendship and love. There is a need for such positive stories for young and old, and I will be reading this to my child someday, but I'll be loving every second of it myself. Yeah, that about wraps it up. We finally made it to the last book on this list. The last book on this list is a bit of a heavy one. I have to say that it really took me by surprise. It's Parachutes by Kelly Yang. And I went into this book completely blind. I have to be honest, I hadn't checked out too much about it, and I had it in my audio library. I decided to pick it up, and I was so surprised by it because it left me feeling really uncomfortable, unsettled, sad, and very upset, to be honest. But I think that the intention was to feel all those emotions when you read this story, because it revolves around very difficult but very contemporary topics. We follow two girls, two Asian girls. One of them is originally from Shanghai. The second one is a Philippine girl, but she lives in the States. And the girl in Shanghai, her name is Claire. She's from a well-off family, and they decide to send her to the States to finish out her high school years. That's why she's called a parachute, because she goes to the States without her parents to live there with a host family. And the second girl, she is part of the host family that receives Claire to the States. And there's a big contrast between the two girls. So Claire is wealthy and Danny, the second girl, is not. They do attend the same school, but they have very different experiences because of their background. And what you encounter in this book is really how teenage kids deal with privilege, with poverty, with social media, with school authority and parental failure as well, and also with sexual harassment and sexual assault. It was such a difficult read, but such a worth it read, especially when you figure out also that the author has encountered some of the situations in her real life during her college career. I was very gripped and very moved by the story of the two girls, and I hadn't really considered some of the topics which occur within this book. That's why it left me feeling very upset and unsettled, and I'm still thinking about those topics whenever I think about this book. So yeah, it was a very moving read. It deserves more hype, to be honest. It's not a very popular book, but I would definitely recommend that you pick this up if you are looking for a bit of a more content filled and more of a gripping story. With that being said, this wraps up my favorites of 2021. Those were really the best books that I read this year, and I actually hope that I'll have such a successful year in 2022 as well, that I'm going to be able to find such books which have left me feeling so emotional and enticed and engaged as the 10 books that I just mentioned did. If you have any favorites that I haven't mentioned, please drop them down below in the comment, and please also like my video, subscribe to my channel, follow me on Instagram as well. And I just want to say, enjoy your holidays, everyone. Enjoy Christmas break, have lots of fun with your family, and just enjoy the little things, because those are the ones that count the most, especially during these difficult times. I wish you just a very marvelous, wonderful day. Happy reading, and see you very soon. Bye bye.